There's not much more satisfying in storytelling than getting the answer to a burning question or the reveal to a mystery whose seeds were planted long ago. And although this is a technique used in near enough every story ever written, One Piece is one of the most frequent offenders. It's one of the reasons that justifies the insane length of the series, so many different threads on top to create its narrative, and yet there's also these sprawling roots beneath the surface that we have no idea about, we can only speculate about, that have yet to sprout and give rise to something 99 times out of 100 no one even considered to be an option. Of course, that inevitable revelation is amazing, but you can argue a large part of that satisfaction is thanks to the build-up. All that time spent digging ever deeper, and that is the power of the unknown. I'm making this before the release of chapter 1114. I'm hearing it's a big one, so just in case something massive is revealed. The part of the story we are in now, the final saga, means the story is ripe for the most insane jaw-dropping reveals of the entire story, or arguably in the entire industry. Egghead's already been full of them, there's good reason why everyone loves the arc so much, and the most recent revelation is probably the biggest of the bunch in terms of what it means for the One Piece world. But more specifically, regardless of how big or important the actual reveal ends up being, the biggest strength of the unknown is the fact that it has no shape, nor does it have a form. What I mean by that is there are so many different ways a mystery can be planted, can be built up, that each one is undeniably unique, but they are all questions that can only ever be answered when accompanied by more questions in a vicious loop, dragging you ever closer to the eye of the abyss known as theory crafting, where there is no end and no beginning. It's like the Hydra, one head gets chopped off, two more take its place. It should be stated that you are not going crazy, or at least not crazy compared to others who have fell victim to the same mentally draining pastime as you have, which is to say, yes, you are actually crazy. Of course, there are so many different ways you can read the story. You can either start it by binging or taking your time, but from there, once you're caught up, there's a pretty good chance you won't read it the same way again, because give it a bit of time and you'll be looking over each panel of each chapter with meticulous attention to detail, looking for the most tenuous link that joins two of the most obscure parts of the story, with the thought process that it will lead to something much bigger. This time not because we are crazy, but because we have seen it happen before. Take Sanji mentioning in passing how he is from the North Blue, or he uses the codename Mr. Prince. That turned out to be hints to one of the best character arcs in the story, in Whole Cake Island, hundreds upon hundreds of chapters later, so there is method to the madness. Madness that is born right at the very start. We can look at chapter 1 and see what mysteries it offers that still have yet to be fully resolved. The most obvious and biggest one is of course the true form, location, scope or whatever of the actual treasure known as the One Piece. Roger's execution is one of the story's most iconic moments, and in a nice bit of symmetry, both opened the floodgates to the great pirate era but also laid the foundations for the great theory crafting era we readers find ourselves in today. But since we do know that this mystery is the be-all end-all of the story, we know it's going to be one of, if not the absolute last to be revealed, so we aren't really holding our breath like it will be revealed in the next week or so. There's a set time in the story, the world's liberation, when it will be revealed, and a set location being Laugh Tale. So until then, we wait. My guess though is that when we do get to Laugh Tale, it will be the biggest case of blue balls in manga history, because Oda has gone on record saying that the story will end when the One Piece treasure is revealed, and I personally want the Straw Hats to walk into the final war with full knowledge of the past near 1,000 year history of the world on their shoulders, so they understand well and truly the magnitude of what they are fighting for. However, that means that the story won't end when the treasure is revealed, since the entire final war touted to put Marineford to shame is still there. So I think on Laugh Tale we will see the Straw Hats react to it the same way the Roger Pirates did, and the chapter will end there, without the reveal, with the next chapter skipping forward a few days or a couple weeks, showing the world government making its final preparations for war, and this chapter ending with the coldest, most badass double page spread of the Straw Hats, on their own, mind you, making their way to liberate the world. All the allies will show up at various points throughout the war. And when Luffy is finally about to win, that's when we will get the One Piece revealed in unison with Luffy beating Emu and Blackbeard simultaneously. Yes, simultaneously. I think the three of them will face off in a triple threat match, and that is how we learn the truth about the One Piece. Then the epilogue and the end. So yeah, I guess that also proves the craziness that I mentioned earlier, because that's not even a theory. There's no evidence that backs up or suggests any of that will actually happen. It's just my headcanon, my fanfiction. Okay, but moving on to the next mystery of chapter 1, the Will of D. Monkey D. Luffy is here, and there's an extremely high chance that this and the other mysteries I'm going to talk about are all linked to the Laugh Tale / Void Century / One Piece treasure lore dump that we are eventually going to get. So we've had many characters introduced throughout the series who share the moniker D, not all humans, and there's so many different ideas out there of what it could be. It's crazy that a single letter can have so much impact, and as for what it could actually be, there's the sideways smile, the half moon D standing for dawn, and so on. I think that, I don't know what the actual D is, but I think that the way it spread is that Joyboy or Nika or whoever this guy truly was bestowed this letter upon each and every member of his crew, and that is how people who would have had nothing to do with each other are all connected with the Will of D. They are all descendants of Joyboy's crew members. We have the Monkey D family, the newly revealed Nefertari D family, Jaguar D, Rox D, Gold D, Marshall D, Trafalgar D, and Portgas D. When gathered together, there's not actually that many people who bear the initial. It's a lot less than I viewed in my head. There's 3 families of 3 plus 4 to make 13 in total, 14 if you include Joyboy, who I think was the progenitor of the D. So we have Joyboy and 7 crew members so far, and let's say 3 more D members to equal the 11 Straw Hats if we include Vivi in that as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Next is Shanks. What on earth is his true role in the story, especially post Wano? The Nika fruit threw a huge wrench into things. I think what is widely agreed upon is that Shanks has taken up the role of a great balancer, keeping things in order in the world, and from that stems the theory that I subscribe to, which is that Shanks is preparing things or doing all this, keeping things in check for the time when the world is liberated. If we go to the Oden flashback where Oden wrote that Roger said something to Shanks that made him cry. I think what Roger said is a collection of things. Firstly, Roger telling Shanks that they were too early, which is what made Shanks cry, that they went on this once in a lifetime, once in a millennium journey almost since the Void Century, just for them to not have been there at the right time. It seems like something worthy to cry about, especially for Shanks, and that conversation may have led into Roger telling him about why they were too early and what was to come in the future. For example, see Buggy's small flashback in the chapter where he made his intentions to go after the One Piece, known to his crew. Shanks would have acted the way he acted because of what Roger told him, and skip forward to modern day, his meetings with Whitebeard and the 5 elders. I'm assuming he met with the gorosei to tell them about Blackbeard. It was to warn them of Marshall D. Teach, not to help them, but since Blackbeard is the biggest threat to the world's true liberation, even though Blackbeard as a member of the Will of D himself probably has his own twisted idea of the world's liberation, and Shanks probably used the idea of helping the gorosei as a guise to get their attention, and the reason he was able to meet with them at all is a mixture of his celestial dragon heritage and the fact that he is the one who's really been keeping the world in check, and they know, given how strong he is, he could undo all of that. So in conclusion, Shanks is carrying out Roger's will of setting up the world so it's ready to be liberated. And finally for this video at least, since there's more mysteries planted in the first chapter, we have the devil fruits, the crux of this world's variety, creativity and uniqueness that gives it a bounce, pun intended, that is part of what makes the story so special. But we hardly know anything about them. They make the sea hate you so you can't swim. Each one of them is unique. There's 3 types, Paramecia, Zone and Logia. You can't eat 2 or more, with one exception, and they are born of people's dreams and desires. The last one is the biggest hint to the origins of the fruits, but there's obviously a lot more to it than that. Like, why does the ocean hate devil fruit eaters? Probably something to do with them being unnatural and the ocean being nature's cradle. And part of Emu's character may be something to do with being the personification of nature or the ocean, something like that. And yet the biggest mystery is how the heck is Blackbeard able to eat more than one? The initial concept of only being able to eat one fruit I think is going to come down to something as simple as a curse put on them. But then for what reason is Blackbeard the exception to that? The devil fruits are most definitely linked to the soul. Firstly, the fact that when you die the fruit reappears in the world, and with what we've learned in Egghead we know that the seraphim are part of the motif of free will in the arc, which makes me think that the reason they are able to hold the devil fruit powers is because they have a soul that the fruit can bind to, I guess. And back to Blackbeard, there's the theory that he has multiple personalities or is made up of multiple people, thanks to Marco's words at Marineford, which fits with the idea of each of his fruits binding with a different soul in his body, meaning that I do not think the powers of the 5 elders or Emu are devil fruit abilities because they have no soul. A great opposition to the likes of Joyboy and Luffy, who have the biggest, freest souls. Also, notice how Blackbeard has been a recurring topic throughout this video, with the One Piece treasure reveal, with the Will of D, Shanks' true goal, and now the devil fruits, even though he isn't even in chapter 1, nor is he even mentioned until over 100 chapters later. That's how you know that the build up for his character specifically has been incredible. Other mysteries from the first chapter could be things like the true power of the redhead pirates, and much bigger the true significance of the straw hat, which I didn't include in this video since I don't have much to go off other than the wearers of the hat: Luffy, Shanks, Roger, and most likely Joyboy. I have no headcanon or fanfiction like I did with the One Piece big reveal, and who's to say whether or not all of this was actually planned from the very first chapter? Who knows? You could argue that Oda being able to build up these insane mysteries without having them planned out from the start, with the whole thing remaining cohesive and making sense, is even more impressive than if he did have it planned out from the first chapter, which goes without saying would be absolutely insane in its own right. There's so much that still needs untangling, and there's just no way I can take any estimates about when the story will end seriously, because there's still so much to get through. But at least we know that with so much still to go, we are not going to be bored for a single second of it.